and we're underway and racing. Stay on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to another round of your Almost Pro Championship season. We're here tonight for the Belgian Grand Prix, round number 5 of your APC season. And it's one of the most exciting circuits we have on the calendar in store for you tonight. I mean, it's the Belgian Grand Prix. It should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Belgian Grand Prix is... if I can get it up. There we go. The Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps, just over 7 miles, 7 kilometres even. Fun fact for you, there is a regulation which means that circuits cannot be over 7 kilometres, but they make an exception for the 19-corner race around the Ardennes Forest here in Spa-Francorchamps because of just how incredible the circuit is. You can see the elevation changes between turn number 4 and turn number 5 as you head down that straight. But, well, it's an incredible circuit, and we should be in for an incredible time. We did have a sprint race earlier on. It was not broadcasted, but on reflection, we would have liked to see it broadcasted because of the action that we had on offer. And, well, we'll see whether the race stacks up in a similar way. I will be joined later by Stadbody, your regular co-commentator, I guess you could refer to him as. At the moment, it is just myself, but that is absolutely fine because, well, we've got a lot to talk about. And why don't we start by talking about the calendars now? Not the calendar, even the standings. I cannot speak. The standings that we have on offer. And I mean, Andrea Chenkovan increasing his lead last time out, once again at the top of the standings to, well, to 108 points. By the way, the sprint race results, Ethan Shackleton took victory, Andrea Chenkovan came second. So despite Aaron McGurk not featuring, Chenkovan had some competition. Ethan Shackleton, who ended up taking 8 points home to close that gap to, 30 points at the top of the standings. And he's now going to try to take advantage of that good start to his weekend and continue on his way forward towards the front of the field and towards the top of the standings. He is sitting in P2, and after McGurk missed a round, and McGurk will be missing, unfortunately, the rest of this season at least, because he is not... well, he's got other commitments, which is unfortunately the way that this goes. But, yeah, McGurk in P number 3 with Daniel Riley sitting in 4th place. He ended up taking P4 in the sprint car, Stuart Woodard, picking up that final place on the podium. And then Brian Moore and Connor Stuart Woodard rounding out that 6-car field. Later on, we were joined by the Williams of Luca Seracini. This is for the qualifying session, is what he's joined us for. And he will be trying to impress, despite the fact that he's not got any of that experience under his belt of this circuit just yet and of racing these drivers at this circuit in this race. But we will see how he goes. He currently sits in P number 7 in the standings, the only ahead of Brian Moore, but it's close down the bottom with 44 points for Daniel Riley, 42 for Carl Stuart Woodard, 35 for Connor Stuart Woodard, 30 for Seracini, and 24 for Brian Moore. Brian Moore is trying a little bit of a different approach today. He is here tonight on a set of the, on a controller because he has an injury. So we will see how that goes for this evening's race. Looking at the constructors' standings then, and it's a constructors fight. It doesn't really look too much like a fight at the moment. The two Ferraris so much quicker than the rest of the field. 174 points to Ferrari, to Williams is 92. And, it's looking unattainable for the rest of the season. Realistically, I think the drivers is looking a bit more interesting. A 2-car battle, in team battle between Shackleton and Chenkovan. But we will see as we head into the race tonight, and we will see as we head into the qualifying session I'm going to watch on board with Shackleton, the winner of that sprint race earlier. So heading into turn number 1, the Saucy wants to take a tight turn and just try and get the car rotated as quickly as you possibly can before you head up to the hill and head up to Eau Rouge, which is this one, and Radillon, which is this one up here. People get that confused. People think that is just the Eau Rouge complex. That is incorrect. Now the Kemmel Straight is where the first full dose of DRS will be activated on the lap. The second one down at the main straight before braking and trying to ride the curbing on the outside, on the inside again, and then trying to just hook it up on the exit and not lose the rear as Brian Moore setting that first lap time of 44.6, instantly displaced by his teammate Daniel Riley with a 43.9. Shackleton now heading through the second sector, and that was one of the McLarens that's gone off the circuit and will not be setting a competitive time. But we've got both the Ferraris, the other McLaren, and then now Lucas Erracini on his outlap on this circuit at the moment. Shackleton, we're watching on board with, heading through the second sector, almost up to the third one, and invalidating on that lap time, just running a little bit wide, and that has really put pay to his lap. Now we watch Schenkovan, who's invalidated as well, and it was Connor Stewart who invalidated on his lap, with Kyle going in with a 45.2. Lucas Erracini begins his lap and begins his charge as the solo Williams in this championship as it stands towards the front of the field, and we will see where he goes, whether he's able to replicate his teammates' achievements, and whether he's those extra laps put in for practice instead of the sprint race will pay off as he heads out of the first sector now with a time of a 31.1 for the Williams, but a big slide into the chicane section. That is not what he would have wanted to see. He's also got a McLaren for company. Whether that McLaren gets out of the way, indeed he does. That is exactly what he would have wanted for him to get out of the way. And now he heads through the second sector and runs wide, slides almost into the wall. Oh, so close to it. And, well, Lucas Erracini, entirely not what he would have wanted to see. Schenkovan and Shackleton are going to go again in these early stints. And going to try now to not invalidate Schenkovan, heading through sector number 2 now and heading down the hill. I mean, that corner reminds me of Austria turn 4, really. Just the downhill braking, so difficult to get it right. But Schenkovan this time getting it absolutely right. And I'm not sure where he actually invalidated. We know where Shackleton invalidated. It was just about running wide on the exit there. Schenkovan not suffering the same fate and heading through now this second sector and up to what will be the third. It was there, actually, that Shackleton invalidated on his first lap. Ethan Shackleton, not Jamie, and certainly not Ernest, as Schenkovan. Purple sector, 14.2. He'll head through now the third sector, almost flat out until you get to the bus stop chicane. It actually is flat out until you get to the bus stop chicane, and then you're going to brake heavily for that final corner. And it's going to be around the final corner for Schenkovan. Is he going to be able to beat Daniel Riley's 43.9? He's going to come up to the line with DRS open, and it's going to be a 42.5. So he not only beats it, he blasts it down in the water. Shackleton now up to the line with a 42.9. He's trying to hold a candle to his teammate tonight, and we've got Lucas Erracini going for another push lap in that Williams because of the issues that he faced on that first one. He did not pick up any damage, and so he's going to head through the first sector, 31.1, an improvement on, I believe, his previous lap time. It was a 31.19, and he set a 31.13. Heading now down the hill after the difficult braking section as Connor Stewart Woodard heads out onto the circuit and now parks up exactly where Lucas Erracini crashed. Or not quite crashed, managed to avoid the wall is what I would say. And, well, he heads out of it and passed pretty comfortably as that's Connor in the background looking to set his first valid lap of this session. His teammate is the slowest of all the valid laps so far with a 45.2. And, well, Stewart Woodard in 6th place. We'll be looking to try to improve on that. There's about 6 tenths to go before you get to Brian Moore, and that is exactly what they're going to try and do. Lucas Erracini then into the final sector, through the final sector, and will come up to the final corner now. Where is the Williams going to be able to place himself as he brakes heavily for that final corner? Slightly on the curbing, but mostly staying off it. The banker does not require that much pushing. Up to the line comes Lucas Erracini, And it's going to be a 43.5. Sticking himself into third place. Not too bad, but demonstrates how much improvement is needed for the likes of Daniel Riley in the rest of this session. We've got Connor Stewart-Woodard starting on his push lap now. And we'll see where the McLaren is able to put himself. Of course, invalidated on his first lap. And, well, his teammate not exactly having the best of times in 6th place at the moment with a 45.2. He's 6/10 off the rest of the field, and he's come back out. And he's getting ready to go once again. What is Connor Stewart going to do as he comes up to the first sector split time? It's a 31.3, so a couple of tenths off of what Luca Seracini was capable of doing. But Connor Stewart is hoping that he can find some time to beat at least a 45.2, which is his teammate's time. And with 8 minutes and 30 left in the session, it's not quite yet crunch time, but he's going to want to try to beat his teammate. And of course, his brother as well, information I found out last week. I knew they were related, but I didn't quite know how. Now we head through the second sector, just sweeping his way through before coming up to the braking zone. I believe this corner is unofficially called Frère, after Paul Frère, the former Belgian F1 driver. Off the circuit goes Connor Stewart-Woodard into the wall, and off goes his front wing. He doesn't want to get in Seracini's way, but at the same time, he knows that Seracini is not on a push lap, so he's not going to worry too much about it. And so they're both just going to head into the final sector and get ready to come back into the pit. 7 minutes 45 left in the session, and a lot of work to do now for Connor Stewart-Woodard. That mistake made is going to be rather costly, as he's now not going to be able to set a banker. It's all going to be down now to that final lap time and that final run as well. The final run that arguably has been started already by Daniel Riley, who is improving very, very minorly in that first sector. And he's going to try to continue to improve as he heads through the second one now. Just this second sector is so difficult for the drivers, mainly because their setups would be pertained to that first and that third sector, where they just sweep it round and it's nice and straight and flat. But the second sector, slightly more difficult. Riley not improving in that second sector, losing 0.5 of a second, and he will be maybe pushing on for the rest of the session, and maybe pushing on for the rest of this lap as well. 6 minutes 30 left in the session. We'll see where Daniel Riley is able to put that kick Sauber as he heads up to the line, and it's going to be coming into the pits, never mind, for Daniel Riley. He comes in, he does not improve, nor does Carl Stewart-Woodard, and the final runs are now being prepared for. Apologies for this, by the way. I'm trying to get the... So Discord likes to update and likes to reset all of my settings. And I'm just going to try and turn it on streaming mode. There we go. I won't get any messages from now on. Jenkovan has just started on what will be his next lap. 5 minutes 30 left in the session. And this could be a preparation for his final run. This could be his final run altogether. It will all be decided as heads through and up the hill. Is this going to be a push lap, or is this just going to be a bank? We will see as he heads up now to the second sector split time, and it's going to be a 30.8. This is a push lap. 0.17 seconds up, sliding his way through the chicane, and well, he's set up for that first and the third sector just to be flat down on the throttle, isn't he? He's heading through now the second sector, just trying to continue that momentum that he had already. And we will see where Jenkovan ends up putting his car. Of course, he's already 4 tenths, or 3.5 tenths if you're being picky, ahead of Ethan Shackleton. And, well, he's picked up 0.172 in that first sector. And we'll try now to get ahead as Jenkovan now is going to come up to the second sector. Split time, and it's going to be an improvement by a tenth of a second. Cenk will continue on, and this final sector beckons for the Ferrari, who's going to come up to the line, and it's likely to be an improvement unless he loses too much time, and he's going to come out now to the final couple of corners. It's going to be a heavy braking zone, bus stop chicane, turn in, and then turn back out again. He went deep into the final chicane, but has he improved? Of course he has. A 42.3, and well, that is looking like it's going to be very, very difficult to beat. However, tonight I promised that I may be joined, and I have now indeed been joined. I don't know if you saw the message down at the bottom, but hello, Mr. Stadbody98.
Hello there, and it's great to be back for a wonderful race at Spa, of course. I have just joined the lobby. I'm actually in the lobby tonight. I forgot to click spectator, so it is actually going to stick me in the race. I'll just reverse backwards off the line. I'll start at the back, so I'll reverse backwards off the line, which will immediately disqualify me, so I won't get in the way of anyone. But yeah, we've got a really fantastic race in prospect, you know. As it looks currently, Cenk currently dominating the qualifying, but a 42.3 is a brilliant lap time, and we will see if he goes for another one. But strategy here will be very, very interesting when we come to the formation lap.
It will. I mean, the main crux of the storyline is that Cenk was beaten out in the sprint race after an exciting battle with Ethan Shackleton, and well, it means that the Ferrari's defences were penetrated, so that does promise that Ethan Shackleton will be able to challenge for a position higher up. And of course, he sits on the front row. But he sits up on the front row almost 6/10 behind Cenk. So a lot of work to do and a lot of catching up to do for the Ferrari as it stands at the moment. Cenk just running off the circuit, getting out of the way of the Kick Sauber, who is equally trying to get out of everybody's way. And he's going very slowly, preparing for his final run. A 43.9 is what he sits on, as I don't think Shackleton's going to come out of the pits. But do you reckon that 42.3 is going to be that pole time? Do you reckon it's going to be impenetrable from now on?
Yeah, I think the 42.3 is the pole time. I think Ethan Shackleton could potentially improve by 0.6 of a second, but it is going to be very hard. Spa is a difficult circuit to sort of crack. It's very difficult. Has something gone wrong?
It appears to be on your end. But we'll try and get you back in as soon as we can. But just continuing on with the final few proceedings in this qualifying session, and Daniel Riley improving by 1/10 of a second in that first sector. It's allegedly purple, but we, of course, know that that is not always the case, as he heads now through the second sector, and we'll see whether Kick Sauber is able to put himself as Brian Moore as well. He will be trying to improve on that time, sitting on a controller tonight rather than a wheel because of injuries, and we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. Hello, I can hear you again.
Hi, something's just gone completely wrong for a second. I lost sound on Discord, and then it's just kicked me out of the game. It's just ended the qualifying session and booted me out of the game, so I don't know what's happened there.
Well, hopefully we're going to be able to get you in before the race starts, and well, what a race we've got lined up ahead of us. Cenk now retiring from the qualifying session. 42.3 is what he's set as. There's 20 seconds left on the clock, and Shackleton has run it very, very close. He's going to have to get round to the line within the next 10 seconds, which is going to be very tight. Daniel Riley improving, not as much as he would have wanted to do. Shackleton has 7 seconds to make it to the line now. I think he's about to just do it, you know, as he comes across the line. 2 seconds left on the clock, and Ethan Shackleton will be running his final lap now. The checker flag, of course, is waved. Brian Moore will not be improving upon his time. It's going to be a slight improvement for Bayern Vortex, a.k.a. Connor Stewart. Would I think he's slightly down in that first sector by 200ths of a second, but there's a lot of time to find in those final 2 sectors Connor Stewart-Woodard hasn't set a lap time at all, so he's going to be wanting to get something on the board. Looking at Luca Seracini, he is just headed out of the first sector, just ahead of Ethan Shackleton. So it's all panic stations here as we head to the end of this Belgian Grand Prix qualifying session. We're going to switch to the man in the lead at the moment. It's Brian Vortex, a.k.a. Carl Stewart-Woodard, who did improve by 0.8 of a second in the second sector. And this could be a very, very solid lap. He's got 0.6 to make up to beat Brian Moore. He's got another 0.8 to get up to Daniel Riley. And he heads out of the final corner now, putting the pedal down to the metal. And where is Brian Vortex going to end up? It's going to be a 44.5, and it's going to be 5th place. Looking further back, his teammate. Is he able to set a valid lap? No. Connor Stewart-Woodard will be starting on his own on the back row of this grid. Daniel Riley will not be improving on his time. Lucas Erasini has invalidated, and it looks as though Shackleton has too. So the end of this qualifying session has come, and it's pole for Chenkovan. It's P2 for Shackleton, and Seracini sits in third. It's a Williams that we expect to be up there, but it's a different Williams to the one that we would normally have, which is, of course, making for an interesting dynamic. Qualifying session is over, and it's a Ferrari front row. And then it's Seracini in P3, then it's a Sauber, McLaren, Sauber, and then a McLaren again. No, I'm not calling them a kick, and I'm certainly not calling them a stake. But an interesting qualifying session that we've just had on our hands, and we should be set for what should be a pretty exciting race around the Belgian Grand Prix. It always seems to throw something up, doesn't it? That is, of course, if you're still in the Discord. Of course, I know you're having a few issues. Do you think it's fixed now?
Is it fixed?
It certainly sounds it.
Fixed. Good. I've plugged in my LAN cable, so hopefully it should be fixed now. Sorry, what was the question? I was focusing on sort of playing around with settings.
That's all right. I'm just saying that the Belgium always throws up an exciting race, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, but the sounds of it, there was rain in the sprint race, and Spa always seemed to have a very high likelihood of rain, which always shakes things up. Because then you don't have the access to DRS, which is such a crucial thing in the dry at Spa, because DRS is so powerful. So it always throws up some excitement, especially if it's a wet to dry race. Although it's looking like, from what Kyla said, it is going to be a dry race, so we can expect probably a medium soft to soft medium sort of strategy from our drivers.
Ah, that's a shame, because it was a wet to dry sprint race. We do have, interestingly enough, not something that I've certainly had so far in my time at APC. We've got a mid-session interview. We get to talk to Mr. Daniel Riley about how he feels that sprint and that qualifying went. So talk us through it.
Yeah, no, I felt like sprint was, to be fair, it was kind of a disaster for me. Obviously, we started on the wet, and then we went over to, most of the drivers went over to the soft. I just stayed out, hoping I can get something out of it. But, you know, it is unfortunate that I didn't get P3 in the sprint. I did get wing damage as well. That did limit me as well. But, you know, it is what it is. I was expecting to get P3 in the qualifying, but Luca was just rapid fast today. So there was not really much I could do about it. But, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully I can jump him at the start. But, you know.
Is the target now P3, or are you looking more towards the two, of course, admittedly, incredibly quick Ferraris, but is that an aim? Is that where you're looking for, the front row, or are you just targeting that third place?
Well, front row would be really good, but if I am going to be honest, I think I should just try and go for P3. Obviously, you know, if it is there, a front row or P2 or P1, I will try and get it, but I think my race is P3. I think I'll have to get past Luca first, but hopefully we have a good race. But yeah, I think my battle is Luca today. Maybe even Kyle. He's behind me as well. He's looked super fast in the last race. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes, really.
Oh, good. I'll let you go. I'll let you go and get your final preparations. But
that's right.
Good to drag you in the middle. And well, We will see how it unfolds, of course, aiming for P2 at the moment. And, well, P1, aiming for P3. P2 would be nice. P1 would be wonderful for Daniel Riley, who would be very, very happy with that one. As, well, he sits in P4 in the driver's standings at the moment. Speaking of the standings, well, I'll run you through them one more time as we head through to the formation lap. 102 for Andrea Chenkovan, 72 for Ethan Shackleton, 62 for the now not racing anymore Aaron Girk, and then Daniel Riley, 44, 42 for Carl Stewart Woodard, 35 for Connor Stewart Woodard, 30 for Seracini, and 24 for Moores. Well, it's a split between the strategies, a soft runner, a medium runner. Everybody has gone for one of those two tyres, and it's Chenkovan who's gone for those mediums. Second place, though, with second place being Shackleton, he's gone for a set of those softs. So, well, he's going to look to try to blast away at the start of this race. How likely do you think it is that he's going to be able to do such a thing?
Softs around Spa to start off with have such an advantage. The advantage is so strong, especially in that middle sector. It's just so strong. So I think off the line he's going to be so strong. But realistically, he's probably not going to want to be ahead coming out of turn 1, just because the slipstream going down the Kemmel Straight, it's just so powerful. You probably want to be sat sort of P2, P3 after the first corner, because you're probably more likely to come out of the first lap leading if you're behind the leader on the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw, and we've all seen, and we all will continue to see. But here comes Sebastian Vettel, and we could be saying, but here comes Luca Seracini, or here comes Daniel Riley, someone like that as we head up to the Kemmel Straight. And the two Ferraris have shot off in their preparations on this formation lap. They're going to have icy cold tyres as they head up to the line in preparations for this race. It's a very interesting strategy with Luca Seracini, a big gap behind, and then another big gap to Daniel Riley. So, well, we will see as the race is about to get underway. Both the Ferraris head up to the line. Give me in one word or two words if you're going to say their name. A race prediction. Who's going to take this victory?
I mean, it's kind of a bit predictable, but Chenkovan. I think Shackleton will give him a good fight. He will be able to keep up because, again, DRS is so powerful. If he can survive that first lap and stay in DRS by the sounds of it like he did in that sprint race, then
we're going to the 5 lights for the Belgian Grand Prix. And it's lights. And it's action. Chenkovan getting underway well. Shackleton trying to go to the outside line. And he's going to sweep around the outside heading into turn at number 1. Can he get this move done? And can he make it stick? Not quite. But as they head up to Eau Rouge, he's going to be able to make this move. And Ethan Shackleton takes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix earlier on. We're going down now to the Kemmel Straight with all these drivers heading through. Through goes Andrea Chenkovan. Daniel Riley looking for the inside line as well. So is Luca Seracini, who's going to try and go down the middle of the top 2. It's going to be side by side between Shackleton and Seracini as they head down the chicane now. Shackleton losing out down into P4. Daniel Riley making his way through. Shackleton trying to fight back, but it's not been a great start for Ethan. Apologies for interrupting you there, by the way, but we were about to get underway. And, well, what a start that was. Chenkovan leading away, and P2 being held at the moment as it is by Luca Seracini, with Shackleton dropping down despite being on those soft compound tyres. My wheel has just fallen off its stand. I will deal with that after the race. But as it stands now, we've got Chenkovan in the lead of this race. Luca Seracini in P2, Daniel Riley in P3, under pressure from Ethan Shackleton. And can the Ferrari make his way through? And can he retake that P3, restart his charge towards the front of this field? He's going to look now to the outside line, might be switching to the inside of the bus stop chicane. And, well, can he make this move stick? It's a nice and simple question, and the answer for now is maybe. He sends it to the inside line, switches back to the outside, and P1 is, or P3 even, is his. P1 in this battle as it stands. But, I mean, fastest lap, of course, goes to Chenkovan, who leads this Belgian Grand Prix as they head it through at the end. Now, we head on to lap number 2, and we head on to Shackleton, trying to regain into the DRS. The first dose will be on this lap on this occasion, and can Ethan Shackleton fight his way through back into it? He can, but it comes at the cost of Lucas Aracini making a mistake up Eau Rouge and losing out from the DRS. Riley sending it down the inside of Shackleton. He's trying to fight it back with that first dose of DRS he got on the lap. But a spin from Daniel Riley, and it drops him right down to the rear of the field, and he was just about going for P3, and now he finds himself right down the bottom and having to start once again in this race. And, well, those tyres will be absolutely cooked. That is a P3 battle gone for Daniel Riley, and he will be absolutely furious in that kick Sauber. And he's now 5 seconds off the back of Connor Stewart-Woodard as it stands. We've got now Demon What's Up, a.k.a. Lucas Aracini, P2, 1.9 seconds behind Chenkovan. So a big gap between the two. Shackleton now trying to pressure Saracini for P2. And, well, the first penalty of the race came right at the end of lap 1 with Stewart-Woodard losing out and picking up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Not what he would have wanted to see on lap 1 of this Grand Prix. He's got Connor for company right behind him, and he might be making this move into the bus-stop chicane if he can get close enough. But at the moment, the groups are starting to form. It's Chenkovan leading by 2.3 seconds ahead of Saracini and Shackleton, as that is Saracini with a 3-second time penalty. So a couple of early warning breaches there, a couple of early penalties heading the Williams and the McLaren's way. And, well, not what they would have wanted to see at this point in the race. With Brian Moore, 2.8 seconds off of Shackleton, and it's Moore and both the Stewart-Woodards in their own battle, with Daniel Riley right down at the bottom in a fight of his own. But how long do you reckon the soft compound tyre is going to last, as that is Stewart-Woodard trying to go around the outside and being successful in going around the outside of Brian Moore, and Shackleton getting back past Lucas Aracini. Shackleton, Kyle Stewart-Woodard and Brian Moore are all on the soft compound. How long do you reckon those tyres are going to last?
I think, realistically, the softs are probably going to go about 8 laps. I believe the strategy around here is about lap 7 or 8. It'll be telling you pit. Mediums will do the rest of the race. They'll do that sort of 14, 15 laps. So I reckon those that have started on the softs will be heading on to the mediums on about lap 7 or 8. And the drop off of softs probably is starting next lap. Next lap we might see a little drop off, but then sort of lap 5, 6 there will be a clear difference in pace between the softs and the mediums.
Well, we've got an interesting race on our hands at the moment with, well, the Stewart-Woodards fighting away with Brian Moore. And, well, they're going to continue to fight away, and they're going to continue to fight away very hard with Kyle just ahead of Connor. Connor sending it to the outside line. Can he make this one stick? No, the two Stewart-Woodards come together, and that is Connor heading through. He's lucky not to get damage or have a spin of his own, but that is a second driver spun around in this race. Kyle Stewart-Woodard has gone round after contact with his own brother into P7. They were going into the bus-stop chicane side by side, and they have now dropped out of it. And, well, while Connor has held on to P4 ahead of Brian Moore, he's made contact with his own teammate, his own brother, who drops now down to the rear of the field. Brian Moore is now going to be able to attack and is now going to be able to take that position on Kyle Stewart-Woodard and head up into P number 4. But we got two drivers ready for their comebacks in this race. And, well, we've got Saracini all over the back of Ethan Shackleton and trying to pressure as they head through now the second sector and trying to pressure as they continue on. They are still trying to fight. 4th and 5th are still trying to fight as well. 4th and 5th being Moore and Kyle Stewart-Woodard, who is not backing off after any moves and after any contact with his teammate. He's going to still try to fight forward, and he's still going to try to fight through. He's right on the rear now is Kyle. on Brian Moore. And now he's going to try and make his way through. He's not been able to make it through, though. And the bus stop chicane will beckon. It didn't work last time. Is it going to work this time for the McLaren? We will have to wait and see. He's going to pull to the outside line. Is he going to get enough, though? No, is the answer to that question. The short answer, and he's going to have to go once again into the bus stop chicane, running wide, trying to get the line, trying to get the exit, and he's been unsuccessful, and he sits back in for one more lap at the very least. He will get DRS down the main straight and up the Kemmel straight, and, well, this fight will wage on throughout this race as Seracini has lost that DRS now to Ethan Shackleton, and, well, for the moment, it will stay as it is, with Kyle Stewart-Woodard trying to pressure, but so far being unsuccessful in getting past Brian Moore. This DRS will once again beckon as they head up to up through the Kemmel Straight, and he will try to get this move done. But he's too far back. His exit out of Eau Rouge was exactly not what he would have wanted at this point in time, and he's so... Or I say Eau Rouge. I criticised people for saying this earlier. It's not Eau Rouge. It's Radillon. And, well, he sits in behind now. And can you talk?
I can talk.
Okay. Right, I'm testing because my headphone jack broke in the incident with my wheel. And I'm trying to get it to fix. So I'm hoping that I can hear you. I can now, I believe. But at the moment, Chenkovan has built up a gap of over 5 seconds ahead of Ethan Shackleton, with Seracini just sitting around 1.3 seconds behind, with Brian Moore sitting 8 seconds behind this group, and Kyle Stewart-Woodard continuing to try to fight. Well, Brian Moore is on a set of those softs. Stewart-Woodard is on a set of those mediums, and he is now back ahead and up into P4. And this battle will wage on as down the inside goes Brian Moore into the final corner. He should have the grip with those soft compound tyres, and he does indeed as he fights his way through. On the exit, though, Kyle Stewart-Woodard gets the exit out of the final corner and retakes that P4. Daniel Riley back into this battle. But how long do you reckon it'll be until those softs of Brian Moore fall off?
I think the fall off is already beginning. From what I know, as I said, from what I know about racing around Spa, sort of the drop off is about lap 5, lap 6, and then you're probably going to be in the pits sort of lap 7, lap 8. Because although soft to medium is possible, tyre wear on the softs is quite high. You know, after 8 laps, you're probably going to be looking at probably 55% tyre wear, so it is a relatively high tyre wear. So I reckon then you'll be going on to the mediums to the end of the race.
Yeah, I mean, it will be unsurprising to see something along those lines as wide goes Moore, through goes Riley, through goes Kyle Stewart-Woodard as well. But, I mean, he's collecting victims in contact today, because now that is a front wing end plate fallen off for Brian Moore. And it's another incident with Kyle Stewart-Woodard that has caused damage. It didn't cause any damage to Connor, just emotional damage. But they'll continue on. I think I've been saying the wrong Stewart-Woodard brother, but that is my mistake, as I'm slightly distracted by the fact that my wheel has fallen off of its stand, and it's taken my headphone jack with it. That is something for me to deal with after the race. At the moment, Daniel Riley is broken free of Connor Stewart-Woodard's DRS, as it is, and Brian Moore just following in behind, 4/10 behind. And he's going to try and make this move at some point soon, maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe they just sit in behind it. It is lap 7. 7 of 22. The shortest in terms of lap times. Or, the shortest in terms of amount of laps that we're going to have. But the longest in terms of circuit. Do you reckon, with some of these drivers, do you reckon that the only real overtaking opportunity is after the Kemmel Straight?
I think there's another overtaking opportunity into the bus stop chicane. I also think potentially, if you're brave enough, you can go side by side for I think it's the 3 corners after the Kemmel Straight. So that right into the left, then into the right, and then obviously you got that nice hairpin in right, Les Coms, I think it's called. You can probably go side by side through those corners, so there's plenty of overtaking opportunities and plenty of time to settle any little battles in the lap.
Daniel Riley has further issues. He's gone off the circuit once again, and he is struggling in this race. And now he has no front wing. So I think that his charge for P3 was the target. And I don't think he's going to get anywhere near that in this Belgian Grand Prix, especially with no front wing now that he's now going to have to go in and replace. But as it stands, Daniel Riley not having the day of dreams, sitting down in P7. And he will have to drop even further back off the field if he wants to pick up anything from this race, because of course you cannot continue on in this without a front wing. And well, being without a front wing is truly devastating around a circuit, especially like Spa, which requires you to have a front wing because of how tricky Sector 2 is and how many just long corners there are. It's not necessarily the high-speed corners that they have to worry about, it's the longer corners. And yeah, indeed, he comes into the pits. The Kick Saubers will be having a double stack with Brian Moore coming in onto the hards. So Brian is going to take those hards to the end of the race. Daniel Riley is going to do exactly the same thing. So interesting strategies here, as we've got an issue, I think, for Lucas Erasini, who I think has gone off at the chicane and has lost part of his front wing. So mistakes being drawn out from a few of these top drivers here in APC. And Lucas Erasini, another victim of it. He sits in P3 currently, but surely he's going to have to go in and fix that front wing at the end of this lap 8 of this Grand Prix, and lap 8 of round 5 of this season. It's been an interesting season so far. It's been dominated by one, I think it's fair to say, and Chenkovan sitting almost 10 seconds ahead of Shackleton. How good has he been throughout this campaign so far?
He's been bulletproof, is the way to put it. He just looks so calm when he's in the race lead, you know. When I came into this championship, I was fast, but I never was in a situation where I was the quickest. This is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but we've got some time to fill, so I think I can go on it. Yeah, I came into this championship at the end of the F1 23 life cycle. I was fast, but I'd always been around people who were quicker than me, like sort of from the leagues I raced in, sort of like top 500 people in the world on some tracks on console. So coming into this league, I was the quickest. I'd never led a race. Coming into the Almost Pro Championship, I had never officially led a race on pure pace. So I didn't have that level of sort of smoothness and calmness under pressure and in the lead to take that lead. If you go back and watch some of the F1 23 streams from season 6, I think it was, you'll see, you know, I made 2 really big mistakes in Qatar. I controlled the vibration when I spun twice. I got a 3-second time penalty at Mexico, which nearly cost me the race win. I was nearly 30 seconds ahead at that point, for context. And then at Brazil, I made a really big mistake, which crashed me out. Sort of a 50-50 incident. But going back to Chenkovan, he's got that smoothness and control that I didn't at the time I came into this championship. And it is such an important thing to have. And it's something you can only learn by leading laps. Because when you're in the race lead, I feel like there's almost a pressure to increase that gap as much as you can in some way, or at least I felt it. But Chenkovan doesn't feel that. And that's why he's just so fast, so consistent, and never makes a mistake.
He has been so good throughout these seasons, I think it's fair to say. Well, I mean, if he doesn't go on to be champion, I will eat a hat, I think, on live stream. I think that's a good plan. That is if I'm there for the season finale, of course. In comes Shackleton into the pits, and he's putting on a set of the medium compound tyres to go 12 laps to the end. But all the soft runners have come in, and they've come back out on a set of the hards. and well, Daniel Riley as well. He wasn't a hard runner, or he wasn't a soft runner even, but he was forced to come in and switch to a set of the hard compounded tyre. We're on lap 10 of this Grand Prix, so we're almost halfway through now. And, well, we're reaching a lull in the race where there are big gaps forming. Chenkovan and Connor Woodard not having come into the pits at any point so far. They're going to look to do that in the next few laps, I would imagine. Soft is the idea, as, well, some of these drivers took 9 laps on soft, so I reckon they can do about 3 more on the mediums until they feel as though they have to come into the pits. Whereas Shackleton going onto the mediums is, I mean, he's going to be trying to do at least 12, 13 laps on those medium compound tyres, and so it's going to be a very interesting strategic split, and we'll see if the undercut works out for Shackleton, as at the moment he was just off of Chenkovan, not quite up to the pace of his teammate, and we'll see how much time he's able to gain in these next few laps as Chenkovan continues on for another lap, heading on to lap 11. We are now halfway through this Grand Prix officially, and Chenkovan comes in, or he doesn't come in even. He is going to come in, presumably within the next few. I mean, 13 laps is what Shackleton is gambling on for those medium compound tyres. Chenkovan is now heading on to his 10th. How long do you reckon they'll be able to take those mediums, considering the fact that they might have a period of lull in this race? How long do you reckon, how long do you reckon, in short, Chenkovan is going to be able to take those mediums before he's forced to come into the pits?
Anyone can take mediums a fairly far distance into this race. You know, I think it's fairly simple to take mediums sort of 12, 13 laps, but if you really wanted to, you could quite easily take them sort of 15, I reckon. I don't think 15 is an ideal amount. I think the ideal amount to take your medium tyres is probably lap 14, because then you've got to the end of lap 14, because then you've got 8 racing laps on the soft tyres. Softs will do those 8 laps. We saw people do 7, 8 laps in that first stint, and with less tyre wear due to lower fuel, they'll comfortably do that. So that is personally what I would do, sort of hanging out for another sort of 3 laps or so, and then have really fast tyres for that final stint.
The faster the better, I think, in the final stint, especially if they are to have any fights, come under any pressure. I think they might also be waiting, possibly, for a safety car. I think that's the sort of thing that you could wait for, but at such an open circuit like this, not exactly what you would be waiting for. As Chenkovan goes on another lap at 12, and he's just going to try and extend this medium stint for as long as he possibly can, and fair play, because, well, what else has he got to do? Because he's 28.3 seconds out ahead in the lead, and increasing that gap as he has over that previous lap. And, I mean, it is a rather long pit lane. But, well, we'll move on to this discussion now. I'll give you the opportunity to please look up how long that pit lane is. And we'll see as Shackleton...
Off the top of my head, it's 21 seconds. Off the top of my head.
21 seconds. So Chenkovan would still come out 7 seconds, not 7 laps. 7 seconds in the lead of Shackleton. So not too bad then in terms of the pressure that Chenkovan's going to be facing from behind, or the lack of pressure. He's got about 7 seconds of leeway, so he's allowed to make a mistake. He's allowed to try and stretch his stint as long as he can. And as long as he doesn't reach puncher levels, I think he could be going for a very, very long time on these mediums, and then just trying to steal that fastest lap away right at the end. And, well, he's building up that gap to Shackleton. 0.2 of a second in that previous sector. It has been reeled back in the corners, but down the straights, he's certainly proving the fastest driver at the moment, and that's the
got the pit time
strategy. You got the pit time?
I was dead right. It's 21.6. I was right.
Well done. Right, that's a nerd thing to know, isn't it? Shackleton, 3-second time penalty. Not what he would have wanted to see, but with the closest driver to him on the circuit 5 seconds behind, it is well, not the end of the world as Chenkovan continues on for another lap at the Belgian Grand Prix. But yeah, 21.6. That's not too terrible. I mean, does that include the actual pit stop itself?
Yeah, it does include the actual pit stop. That is the total pit time when you're driving through the pit lanes. So from when you hit the limiter, the pit line of, I believe the limit at Spa is 37 miles an hour. I believe, until the end of the pit lane. That is 21 seconds. That's not including the time you've got to go round that final corner at Spa, of course. The pit lane, to go into the pit lane, you have to go round a weird corner. So that's 21 seconds from the pit line to the end of the pit line.
So not too terrible. We've got a battle going on here as Daniel Riley goes off the circuit once again. It's really not been his day, and I'd quite like to speak to him. We spoke to him in the middle of the race as Brian Moore runs wide in the final corner, and Kyle, even Stuart Woodard, just runs into the side of him, tries to take the racing line, thinks that Brian Moore is sacrificing the position, and in the end, Stuart Woodard actually handed that position back as they headed out of that final corner because of the fact that he probably felt as though that was a harsh move, and fair play to him. Very sporting of him, but with no end plate. Once again for Brian Moore, he's going to now try to hold on to that position. It's the other end plate missing for Stuart Woodard, and so they could match, they could be twins. Down the inside goes Stuart Woodard, Moore allowing him the position nice and simply, and that is Stuart Woodard up to P5, and Brian Moore down to P6, running wide on the exit just a little bit. And well, there's been a few moments like that for Brian Moore. Of course, he's not racing as he regularly would, but he is of course racing. We are happy that he's doing that. There's 7 of us here tonight, taking the 22 lap race around the Belgium Grand Prix circuit, and well, it offers the opportunity for somebody who's not quite had the best day to just continue on and just continue their championship charge. So, of course, we know that Andrew Chenkovan is right up the top. But you think about it, someone like Daniel Riley, who's really not had his moment in the sunshine today, he's on 44 points. He will gain points from this race, despite having an absolute shocker by his own standards. He was aiming for P3. He will end up in P7, but that is still a decent chunk of points to take home, especially as the fight for P4 and what will soon be P3 is on. Riley leading that one ahead of Kyle Stuart Woodard by 2 points, and he will actually sacrifice the lead of that by 2 points at the end of this round. But Connor Stuart Woodard will gain 15 points. He won't quite be ahead of Riley. If Riley does indeed finish, Riley will get up to 50 points, and Stuart Woodard will get up to... Oh, because Stuart Woodard will get up to 50 as well. So they will be level pegging as another 3-second penalty heads Brian Moore's way as he continues to try to chase down, but not quite close enough to Stuart Woodard to make that move stick. You've got Seracini in P4 at the moment. He will gain 12 points. He will be on 42, and he will still be behind Daniel Riley. So it's important that he continues that campaign. And well, it's one of those criticisms I have of Lando Norris, I think, is that Norris wants to win every single race. He doesn't understand the need to maybe come home with some good results out of probably not ideal circumstances. But it's going to be very interesting to see throughout the rest of this season how the two McLarens do. The two McLarens in this race doing pretty all right. It's 3rd and 5th is where they are sitting at the moment, and 3rd place being for Connor, which is not what we would see normally. Of course, Kyle 7 points ahead in the standings as Kyle actually runs wide, and Brian Moore heads back through. Kyle running very wide to avoid a track limit penalty. I'm not sure whether he's been successful, but the other Stuart Woodard, Connor, coming into the pits, and Chenkovan picking up a 3-second time penalty as he heads now. Well, we headed through the chicane at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and that would explain the running off of the circuit. That would have been a dipping a tyre into the gravel sort of situation. Stuart Woodard coming into the pits. He will come out in this battle with Brian Moore and with the other Stuart Woodard. So Connor and Kyle and Brian Moore are all coming together once again. He's made the long overcut work, though, has Connor Stuart Woodard, and he has come out in the lead of this battle. However, DRS will be available for Brian and for Kyle, and they're going to try and close it back in as they head up now the Kemmel Straight. It's one of the highest elevation changes on the Formula 1 calendar, and we could be seeing a heightening of the racing as through goes Kyle Stuart Woodard, and well, purple sector 1 for Kyle Stuart Woodard. It's an ideal scenario, and it's the perfect time to turn on your racing nous and make that move stick. Brian Moore did try and look for a move, but he was unable to make that stick. And Connor now, with those tyres all fired up, will try to fight back against his brother. Around the outside he will go, as it's a poor exit for Kyle. And he will tuck back in behind Connor, who retakes P4. And, well, runs wide on the exit, but doesn't lose that position. These two, of course, missing an end plate. And it's not ideal for them. And so, against the man with a full front wing and fresh soft compound tyres, this battle is unlikely to last very long. And he will try to blast away and allow Kyle and Brian to just continue their battle as they were. Brian, though, losing that DRS, and we could be back to a lull in the race on lap 16 as we all wait for Chenkovan to come in. You say it's 21.6 seconds. Well, Chenkovan is 24.3 ahead of Shackleton at the moment. And, well, that's only come down 4 seconds across the last few laps of this race. And despite Shackleton putting in the fastest time of anybody, it is going to be a continuous battle between Chenkovan and his mind as to when he's going to come into the pits and switch off of that set of very warm now medium compound tyres. I think the only thing in his mind is, will they reach puncture zone? If they don't reach puncture zone, I wouldn't come in if I was him until the latest that he possibly can. But Brian Moore's made it back within the DRS of Stuart Woodard. He has not made that move though. He will just sit in behind, with Stuart Woodard trying to get DRS off of his brother, but unable to on this occasion. And you think that he's going to be able to break away. Lucas Erasini has an incident where he had the same incident in qualifying and he's gotten back underway, but Connor is oh so close to him as Chenkovan on lap 17 finally decides to come into the pit and switch off of the set of the mediums that have done so well for him. He switches onto the softs. Where is Shackleton going to be? He heads through the bus stop chicane right now, and it looks as though it's going to be an easy lead for Andrea Chenkovan, who's managed this race so well, and he's only got 5 laps left to try to seal it. He has a gap of, what's that going to be? It's going to be 6 seconds in the end. So, well, a little bit more of a gap than the 21.6 seconds would suggest, but of course, that is partially down to the fact that those sorts of measurements are not always accurate. We don't know how long exactly the pit stop is going to be. And Chenkovan on that occasion nailed it. That was another penalty, as everybody now has penalties, and I'll run you through them now. So it's 3 for Chenkovan, 3 for Shackleton, 6 for Seracini, 3 for Stuart Woodard, then 6 for the other Stuart Woodard, 6 for Brian Moore, and 3 for Daniel Riley. But it's not going to matter for the likes of Shackleton, Chenkovan or Riley because of the gaps that they hold up in front and down behind. Lap 17 of this race, and we continue on with Chenkovan, who will likely come home in the race lead. It'll be interesting to actually try to calculate how quickly that man is able to win this championship. Of course, we hope that it doesn't come down to that, and we hope that it goes right to the very end. But with the Chenkovan pace so far, with the fact that the man on a similar pace to him hasn't quite, well, he's not racing for the rest of the season, and nobody else quite has the pace of the Chenkovan. So he's going to continue on now in this Belgian Grand Prix and throughout the rest of the season to hopefully become the APC champion. He's going to be closed in on that last lap overall in timing by Shackleton, who closed a second in, but that was probably due to Chenkovan. Probably fuel saving, because he would have known that he needed to stretch that medium stint long, and he would have tried to use everything at his disposal to try to stay ahead. But, well, we are now going to be 5 races into this 14 race season, and this is one of 2 sprint races, the second one coming on the 6th of May. And, well, we've almost, I believe, timed this calendar perfectly, because if leaks are to be believed, the 27th of May is when F1 25 will be coming out. And we only have 1 round to go then. After that one, the penultimate round of the season will be on the 27th of May at Qatar, before we head to the final round of the season at Abu Dhabi. So just to run you through the calendar we've had so far, we had Bahrain, and then we actually switched to Austria for round number 2. That was the first time I came into this league, and we had Edward Hunter alongside us in the comms box for that one, for the 100% race to celebrate race number 100 in APC. And then Saudi Arabia the week after, before heading to Great Britain, to Silverstone, to Northampton, where both of us are relatively near. It's our local circuit. And then Belgium, which is not our local circuit, but it's one that's used quite a lot actually on British racing calendars, interestingly enough.
I actually went for the Formula 1 last year.
Did you?
Spa. Yes. It was awesome.
Where were you?
I was sat on the grandstand just after turn 1. From the grandstand I could see Eau Rouge, Radalon, and I could also see part of the Kemmel Straight as well. It was an absolutely awesome view. I'll send you a picture later, but yeah, it was awesome weekend.
It's not a bad viewpoint to get some racing action from. It's better than 2021 at least. I think it's fair to be said. And well, the racing that we've got going on here could be lighting up once again, as Lucas Aracini has been caught up by Connor Stewart-Woodard, who's having an absolute flyer by his standards here and could be going on to take that final podium spot. As Seracini has a wobble out of the final corner, so does Connor, so he cannot take advantage. And, well, he can just sit behind for the rest of the race if he wants to, with Seracini having 3 seconds more worth of penalty ahead of him. But I don't think he's going to want to do that. And the exit out of turn 1 would certainly not suggest so, as we might be seeing our first side-by-side as we head up through Eau Rouge. We are going to see our first side-by-side, never mind. Lucas Seracini backs out of it. Wimp. But he does back out of it, and he might get this DRS down the Kemmel Straight, and he's going to try and fight back this way as he heads into the chicane. Lucas Seracini back into P3, but Connor is going to try and fight this one. He's late on the brakes around the outside, trying to take the inside, but Seracini just cutting off that line. Perfect defence there from the Williams, and he holds on to P number 3. You've got, by the way, the other Stewart-Woodard in the background trying to close that gap, and if they keep fighting, he'll close that gap relatively easily. So it could be a great weekend, for the two McLaren drivers who are currently sitting in 4th and 5th. They could be 3rd and 4th by the end of this race, lap 20 of 22. And, well, the two Ferraris have showed the rest of the field who is boss today. But especially Cenk 37, almost 38 seconds back to Seracini and Stewart-Woodard. This battle for P3 will likely continue on throughout the last couple of laps of this race. But I mentioned Belgium. We'll mention now the rest of the calendar. As Seracini picks up another 3 seconds, and well, he runs wide. We won't mention the calendar. We'll mention the fact that we could be seeing a send into the final corner. It didn't go well for Connor Stewart-Woodard last time. He sent it on his own brother. Is he going to send it on Seracini into the final corner, or is he going to think better of it and back out? He's going to think better of it, and he might be making this move into turn number 1. It could be mostly turn number 1 where he tries to make this move. It could also be as they head up the hill out of Eau Rouge and Radillon and up the Kemmel Straight, where you watched the last race of, well, the last Formula 1 race at Belgium. The next one isn't too far away, to be fair. We've got, well, we are already 8% of the way through this Formula 1 season. So time flies when we're having fun, really, doesn't it? Krypton World, a.k.a. Connor Stewart-Woodard, closing in on Lucas Seracini. He tried it here last lap. Seracini's defence down the inside was so much better. And, well, Connor Stewart-Woodard not quite close enough as that, I believe, is Andrea Chenkovan making a rare mistake in Sector 3. He's gotten out of it okay, but he's lost 2 seconds to Shackleton. So a rare mistake from Andrea Chenkovan, who looked to be dominating this race. And he shows that there is indeed a chink in that armour, or a chink in that armour, in that Ferrari car as it heads onto the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix now. And the number 95 will look to head on to, well, be mistakeless for the rest of this race. But we will to wait and see. So after Belgium, then we'll head to Hungary for the Hungarian Grand Prix. That is next week. And the Netherlands for the Zandvoort race, the oversized go-karting track of stark contrast to this race we have on offer here. Then a break week before we head back to Italy at the Monza, which is, of course, an incredible race by its own standards. We might have Connor Stewart-Woodard going for a move on this lap. He might be waiting for the next lap to get past Saraceni, and hopefully he does, so I can continue to the end of the calendar now. But he seems desperate for me not to be able to get to the end of it. And fair play. I mean, he's been closing in on Lucas Saraceni for the last few laps. He's been trying to get past Saraceni for the last few laps, and he hasn't quite been able to do it. He'll get DRS up the Kemmel Straight once again. I'll rattle them off then. Singapore, a sprint at Texas, and then Brazil, then America, and then Qatar, and then Abu Dhabi will round us off for our season 8 here in the Almost Pro Championship. And well, we hope that the championship isn't done by the time that F1 25 comes out. We hope that it runs as late as it possibly can. And well, that would be a great watch, wouldn't it, to see somebody take the fight to Chenkovan, who, well, Shackleton's made a mistake of his own, I think, as the gap to him, the gap between him and Chenkovan has grown exponentially. And Chenkovan up in the lead as Saraceni goes round. And that is the mistake that he's made so many times in this session, in qualifying and now in the race. Saraceni now has no front wing, and that is the battle for the podium over. And it is now going to both the Stuart Woodards 3rd place and 4th place as we head now onto the final lap of this Belgian Grand Prix. And Andrea Chenkovan has absolutely dominated. He's 30 seconds almost ahead of Shackleton. He's 28.9 seconds ahead of his own teammate, who's only just crossing the line. Now Chenkovan almost out of Sector 1. That is the level of dominance that you don't see very often. In fact, the last time I think I saw a level of dominance like this, I was watching the race replay of Jim Clark at the Belgian Grand Prix all those years ago around the Spa-Francorchamps, where he finished on the leading lap. Nobody else did. Chenkovan, had he been given an 100% race, could have cut that close, but a mistake as well. So, sort of drew that out. So I think he would have been even 40 seconds ahead of Shackleton. And what a race he would have had in this one, as Shackleton makes a further mistake, I think, and he now does fall 30 seconds behind Chenkovan. And, well, Chenkovan is now going to leave Sector 2 and head on to the final sector of those 22 laps. It's another penalty heading Brian Moore's way. But Chenkovan, well, despite his 3 second of his own, he doesn't care. He won't care, because no matter how many penalties he can get, in fact, the amount of penalties this game can allow would not stop Chenkovan from winning this race. A 32.7 second gap back to his teammate. The levels of dominance that have been displayed by Andrea Chenkovan today are unparalleled. And he will come up to the line. The Ferrari team on the left. Chenkovan will celebrate victory here in Spa. And his teammate will come home now with no front wing in... Well, that's a dramatic turnout. That's why that gap has been grown so much. Shackleton hasn't got a front wing, but the pace that he's had has shown that he deserves this P2 today. And despite that front wing loss at the end of the race, he will come across the line in P2. The fact that he was even able to hold on to P2 without a front wing on that last lap is testament to the pace that he showed today. It's a perfect weekend for Ferrari. And, well, they take 1-2 in the sprint, 1-2 in the race. But just the other way around. We thought Shackleton was going to be able to challenge Chenkovan. He did in the sprint, but not quite in the race. It's both the McLarens heading up to the line in P3 and P4, with both the Stuart Woodards doing an incredible job there. P5 for Brian Moore, and then 6th and 7th will go to Saraceni and Daniel Riley. Saraceni, who's really struggled on that grip and really struggled today in particularly sector number 2. He's going to try and find his way through the final couple of corners. He could be closed down by Daniel Riley, even Daniel Riley, the final finisher, or at least he will be. Up to the line comes Saraceni. He will drop down to the final position because of penalties, but it is, in the end, P7 for Saraceni, P6 for the driver who finished behind him on circuit, Daniel Riley. But what a drive that was from Chenkovan and from Shackleton. Give me your driver of the day.
It can only be one man, let's be completely honest. As I said earlier, in that little tangent I went on, just bulletproof. I know he made that small mistake, but everyone makes a mistake here and there. Driver of the day deservedly goes to the man who dominated, and that is Andrea Chenkovan.
I don't think it can really be anybody else after a performance like that. what an incredible race from Chenkovan just to hold on to it. Only one mistake throughout the entire Grand Prix, and that is testament to his ability. The Croatian won the race from pole with Shackleton in P2, and then it was the Stuart Wooders in P3 and P4. Brian Moore taking home a well-earned P5, with Daniel Riley not having a great day in P6, and a similar result for Seracini, who finished down in P number 7. But that is the end of round number 5 of your season number 8. And we've got a few interviews that we can get in. We'll start from the bottom, work our way up to the top, and we'll start with the man that we dragged in halfway through. We'll start with the man who we dragged in during or in the mid-pack between qualifying and the race. We spoke to you before about your target being P3. Just talk to me about your race.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate. Obviously, I think I started good. I can't actually remember. I think I was P3 actually, I believe. And then going into the second lap, I had Chenky and Luca ahead of me. I had Shackleton behind me. I was trying to make the overtake, make it difficult for him, and I can't remember what corner it was, but I ended up spinning. He didn't hit me. It was my fault. I just completely spun the gravel, which completely destroyed my race and my podium. But I was still gaining ground, and then I don't even know what happened again. I spun again, broke my front wing, so I had to pit, go on hards. Then I actually had another moment where I didn't spin, but I went in the gravel, which cost me 5 more seconds. So it just wasn't one of those race weekends, unfortunately. But we did get P6. I'm not sure what happened at the end. I think maybe Lucas spun or something. But, there is a positive at the end of the race. It could have been P7, so,
Well, yeah, I mentioned mid-race about the fact that it was the points that were key. It's just coming home in the points that were key, and in fact, that does mean that you hold on to your position in the championship. Well, you're going to be equal on points with Connor Stuart Woodard on 50. So, how key is consistency in that battle for, I presume, what will be P3 soon?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be difficult because, it's just I was expecting to be at least P3 in this race, but some drivers completely surprised me today. Obviously, Shackleton, when he did the first quali run, he was a second up me. And then Luca as well, he was really quick. It just came out of nowhere for these drivers. So it'll be difficult to say, going into these next few tracks. Obviously, I'm not good at Hungary. I believe Italy, I'm not really good as well. But so it's just taking the car home at this point, just getting those races down. And there is a few races coming up that I'm happy for. Obviously, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Kota. Those are the races I'm really good at. So we just got to get through these next few races, head on to those races that I am good at. And hopefully we can get P3 in the championship, maybe even P2 in the constructors, but we'll see how it is.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair target, all things considered. But with the advantage that the two Ferraris have, that's understandable. Have we got any questions, Owen?
No, you covered everything really well there.
Wonderful. Well, I'll take that compliment, and I'll take you out of the comms box. Well done for today. Well done for keeping going, because I know it's not easy when you spin a few times, and it's difficult to pick yourself back up. So yeah, well done today.
That's all right. Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Next, we shall bring in the man who finished ahead of Daniel Riley. We shall bring in Brian, who ended up taking home what is a pretty decent result by everything considered. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it was better than I expected.
Not too bad then. Do you want to just talk us through that race that ended up not as bad as you expected?
Going into it with Spa being one of my stronger tracks on the calendar, I was thinking good race weekend chance. Once again, it fell apart in quali with my final lap of qualifying being invalidated when I was decently up, so that put me P6 on the grid. Decent start to the race. It started going downhill from there, but seeing, I think it was the Williams crashing near the end, just gave me a little bit of confidence to just push again near the end.
Yeah, I mean it was Seracini who dropped down from that battle to P2 all the way back down. But I mean, it looked like a pretty quiet race, all things considered. Apart from, of course, a couple of key moments. The moment, of course, was with Mr. Stuart Woodard. What was your verdict on that?
Is this the bus stop or the other one?
Well, I was thinking of the bus stop, but go for the other one as well.
Okay, the bus stop. Yeah, no, we were just talking about it in the waiting room, and yeah, no, that was, in my opinion, that was my fault completely, and yeah, that was just my fault. I mean, I feel bad for him getting the 3-second from it, and you know, if it gets reported, it gets reported. You know, I will take responsibility for it because it was my stupidity.
I mean, that's fair enough, and I'm not man enough to admit that sort of thing. So fair play to you. But yeah, all things said and done, P5 I think is a decent result. Owen, have we got anything?
No, again, I was only going to ask about the bus stop chicane incident, so you've covered it.
Look at me on fire tonight. Well, thank you very much for your time, Brian, and we will see
You're
see you again next week.
Yeah.
Heading further up the grid now, and we will go to one of the Stuart Woodard brothers. They finished P3 and P4 in the end, but we will start with, of course, as is always the way, heading up the field.
Oh, it's me.
It is you. We've interrupted your conversation, and we've decided to drag you into the comms box. Talk us through what appeared to be a bit of an up down chaotic race.
Yeah, a bit messy, a bit scrappy. I mean, Spa's never been one of my favourites, but from practice, I kind of felt like I had a bit of pace for once here, which is quite surprising for me. So yeah, you know what? Like I had a little bit of contact with Brian. We were just talking about it in the waiting room, but it was minor. It barely really affected my race, but it did kind of give me the warning that gave me my first penalty when he kind of pushed me off track. But I don't think it would have really affected me too much. At the end of the day, I had quite a few warnings anyway. Although obviously towards the end, I obviously purposely didn't fight my brother because he had less penalties than me. But a little part of me, it does wonder if I hadn't had that little incident with Brian, would we have been at even penalties? Could I have fought for that podium? But yeah, it's not bad. P4 is really not bad. You know, ahead of the Salvers, and obviously Luca there as well kind of surprised me. I was doing enough to stay within his penalty window anyway. My brother was doing a great job at hassling him, keeping him within that penalty window, but he spanned on the end anyway, which is a shame for him.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to mention your brother there, as there was a couple of moments there where there was a little bit of contact between you two. Was there any? What were your thoughts on those incidents?
I mean, I can only think of the one, which was completely my fault. I let him go. He was faster than me at that point. I think I can't remember if I had wing damage. There was a reason he was faster. I think my softs died and his mediums are faster, so I let him go into the bus stop. Then I realised that Brian was a lot closer than I thought he was, so I kind of tried to carry more speed into the corner than I would have wanted to, just to make sure Brian stayed behind. But that then did cause me to kind of go into the side of him and obviously span. So that's completely my fault. Wasn't his fault. I'm kind of glad that he wasn't affected by that. But that's the only one I can think of. Was there another incident that I forgot?
I might be thinking of an incident between Connor and Brian, because there was a couple of those at different points.
Brian was a little
I can
bit
only think of
weavy
one.
today. He was a little bit weavy, Brian, today. I did have a chat with him in the waiting room there, and he does kind of hold his hands up, and you know, it's not the end of the world, but would have appreciated a bit more space when the overtakes were kind of when they were on. But yeah, these things happen.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Have we got anything, Owen?
No, again, I was going to touch on the Connor Kyle incident, but you covered it again.
Look at me, 3 out of 3 today.
Yeah, you don't mess about, do you? You don't mess about.
And we'll
And
see
also,
if...
this is Connor's in the waiting room. He never interviews, so I feel privileged because he's here for once. So he does like one interview a season. So this is probably going to be his only interview this season. So make the most of it.
Well, I think he's very excited about that podium, so I think I'll let you go. I'll get the better Stuart Woodard in, or at least demonstrated by the on-track better Stuart Woodard in tonight. But yeah, well done on your...
Thanks very much, man. Always a pleasure.
There we go. We will drag in the other Stuart Woodard now. Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well.
Good. Right. Do you want to talk us through what ended up being a pretty successful race, but there was a little bit of carnage in between?
Yeah, it was probably, I'd say, a relatively surprise finish for me, to be honest with you. It was I think in the end it all pretty much came down to my strategy. I was concerned about my tyre wear, so I was just trying to really keep my race clean. Managed to keep out of the penalties for a little while, then got my 3 seconds. I figured, you know what, at this point I might as well run my mediums as far as I can and keep my soft to the end, and seemed to have just about kept me on the podium. I'd say mostly down to my penalty points, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about clean. You had a couple of incidents in the race. What were your verdicts on those?
Yeah, there was a few. There was a few little incidents. One of them was a mistakenly coordinated overtake with me and Kyle. There was a little bit of fighting between me and Demon, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think I never got any damage. I don't think I caused any damage. So I think all in all, it kind of worked out in my favour. Maybe not to the benefit of some other drivers.
Well, yeah, I mean that's fair enough, and it from the sounds of things, they sounded pretty fine with the incidents. At the end of the day, there weren't anything too dramatic. Was it a case of consistency being key then? With, of course, the likes of Seracini having an incident later on and just sliding around, and Daniel Riley having the pace but also having the same thing.
Yeah, I think realistically, it kind of just came down to that. My whole race, I have a tendency to get very in my own head when I'm actually racing people, and especially when I knew I was on the podium, I was like, right, all I need to really do here is settle down, try and keep it consistent. I could see Demon, for example, just sliding all over the shop. So I was like, you know what, I'm not even going to try too hard to overtake. I was like, let me just kind of stay behind, maybe put a bit of pressure on, which I don't know, may have caused him to spin towards the end. But you know, I figured as long as I put pressure on, as long as I keep it clean, I think. So I know it was mostly focused on me keeping my race consistent.
Owen, have we got anything, or have I gone straight 4 out of 4?
4 for 4. Well done.
Oh, beautiful. Right. So on that note, we're going to let you go. So well done on your P3, and well, we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, you shall do. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. And yeah, there we go. We will round off for this evening. So thank you for those of you who've tuned in to this stream. From the sounds of things, the sprint was something that we unfortunately missed, but the race still delivered. Plenty of mistakes, plenty of action, and well, speaking of action, lights, camera, action will be reverted. Action will continue and get back underway next week. But until then, it is goodbye.
And we're underway and racing. Stay on the brakes, goodness me, what a launch! The outside of turn 1 and takes the lead of the race.